The sun is shining. It is fish fry season. I'm in a good mood. Are the Pittsburgh Steelers? We'll maybe answer that here on this edition of Mic Drop, powered by the Believe Network and available everywhere you get your podcasts, including SiriusXM. I am Mike Asti, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have failed. They failed their report card. They failed their annual report card. Report card day for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a day they fear. They do not look forward to it. Anyone out there with any kids who, there's a different vibe around them, they act differently, they're kind of scared of report card day. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers this time of year. Because this year, like recent years, it's a rough report card for the Steelers. But unlike in recent years, when it was bad and getting worse each season, this year, they fail. A whopping F for the Pittsburgh Steelers in multiple categories, and collectively, it's a really, really bad report card. The worst for the Pittsburgh Steelers in recent memory, which is saying something because the Pittsburgh Steelers have routinely brought home poor grades. I mean, just imagine it. If you're a parent of the Pittsburgh Steelers and you see the bad grades and you punish the kid, you send them to their room, you withhold treats. My daughter would freak out if we were withhold treats. You don't let them hang out with their friends. You do whatever you can, thinking it would get better. You try to tutor them. You try to work with them. You get them help outside the house. No activities maybe, just school. And year after year, doesn't help. You're trying things new, but for them, it's the same. It's the definition of insanity for them. It makes you insane too. And that's kind of the Steeler fans watching this whole thing because they refuse to try anything new. And the report card continues to be rough. And now you get to where it's a fail. Now you see these categories, these grades, and now you're throwing your hands up in the air. So here again on this episode of Mic Drop, we are going to answer whether or not the Steelers failing their annual report card from the past NFL calendar year is a big deal or no deal at all. Again, Mike Asti here, Mic Drop with Believe, available everywhere you get your podcasts and on SiriusXM. And, I usually like to give you a hard, fast mic drop. That's the name of the show, take here. I'm not scared to deliver my opinion, no matter who likes it or not. I will give you my take. You may like it, you may not. But for this, of course, I have a take, but it's kind of both a big deal and no deal, simultaneously in a way. See if you can follow this, and feel free for anyone to chat along. I am streaming this live, of course, on my personal YouTube channel and all over social. I have now also branched out, and aside from my personal YouTube channel, some kinks here in terms of trying to stream this over there, but that'll get figured out. But there's now a Mic Drop YouTube channel just for this particular show. Maybe the other shows that I host will have one soon, but now there is a Mic Drop YouTube channel. So head over there and subscribe. It's very, very new. All the past shows are there, but they all were uploaded kind of at once. So the channel's not bare bones, and that's why the views and subscriber total right now are incredibly low. So feel free to hit that up. Feel free to subscribe. If you subscribe to me, if you follow me across social, read any of my content with my coverage, or just follow me in general, head over to the Mic Drop channel as well. But right now, this is being streamed on my personal YouTube channel. And of course, on my X account, all over social media. Find me there. You can chat along. You can talk to me there. You can also do it here. I'll talk to you. But if you are listening to this in podcast form, that's, of course, maybe where most of you listen to this. That's what helps us over there with Believe. And if you are listening to this on any of the podcast platforms or on Sirius, then again, you can't chat along. This is after the fact, but enjoy nonetheless. So where it's really no deal for me is that this might honestly be the least surprising development of the offseason. This is an offseason that's been anything but boring and minimally surprising. This had the offseason that ended the Tomlin era, where he steps down. And, some of us thought maybe this could happen. Some of us thought maybe he was getting sick of things. Some thought maybe he wouldn't be around forever. But when it occurred, how it occurred, what occurred after, and Mike McCarthy being the head coach and the oldest head coach in Steelers history by far, 62-year-old Mike McCarthy coming over. Pittsburgh native, but way different than what they normally do when they try to hire that young coach, the Knoll, the Cowher, the Tomlin, and then you groom with them for 10, 15, 20 years, 19 years in Tomlin's case. Obviously, Mike McCarthy not going to be there that long. We're waiting for Aaron Rodgers' decision. Had a solid year. They got into the postseason and won the division. But then, of course, same old story of no playoff wins since that 2016 season, since January of 2017. We'll see if that ends now with Mike McCarthy in charge. Players speaking out, players still there right now, the Cam Haywards, the TJ Watts. What do their futures look like? All of these are questions, and of course, my colleagues right now are covering what's going on in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. I've covered that. I've been there many, many times. Maybe the most fun event to cover for a media member. It's almost like a high school reunion for us, too. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of content, a lot to do. Not there this year. But that all aside, because there's been some surprises involving all of that this offseason, even for the most tapped in. The report card? No. The Pittsburgh Steelers, as I said, they're in the kind of a joking, you're a little kid, Pittsburgh Steelers, you won't change. What do us as the parents of you, what do we do? Not surprising because you've been failing for years. The grades have been rough for years. So where it's no deal for me, this has been the case. So for the hot takes out there of, oh my God, the Steelers failed their report card. The players are unhappy with the facilities, with the strength coach, with only 5 bathroom stalls in the locker room. And by the way, the locker room itself is really nice, but only 5 bathroom stalls. That's one spot I'm certainly not going to when I'm in that locker room, the players' bathroom stalls, but they only have 5. That's a low number, of course, but yeah. Okay. We've known all this. We know they share a facility with Pitt. We know this is an historic Pittsburgh Steelers franchise that should be above sharing a facility with a college program, any college program. We know that their field gets played on by Pitt and by high school teams year in and year out. And we know that members of the Steelers, opponents, every year complain about this. We know they're going to fail that. We know they're going to fail the facility. And we could get into the intricacies here. I'm not going to necessarily debate on what to do in the future, although there's not much, in all honesty, or why they're sharing with Pitt, or where maybe this goes. Maybe that'll be a future show, because kind of for a little aside, the Steelers can't just unilaterally boot Pitt. That's not possible. And the Steelers have to play in the city, or they should. Maybe there's not a rule, but the Steelers should be playing within the city limits. Their stadium should be Acrisure. It shouldn't be like Pitt takes that over and the Steelers go get another one, because the Steelers, unlike Pitt, have the money to do it. Pitt does not have the money to do it. Look up Victory Heights. That's sucking in any donations they get. That's where they want some donations to go, because it's getting built and they broke ground, and it's the dumbest thing that's happened really to the Pitt athletic department, because it's helped, lead to some problems with their major sports. They broke ground before they had the money to do so, or at least the donations that they thought they were going to get. But any major donor, anyone who donates, is not going to want to put it into the Olympic sport facility, no matter what the volleyball team's doing, no matter what any of the others maybe are doing, and the others aren't really doing all that much. They wanted to go to football and men's basketball in particular. And men's basketball has been really, really rough if you're a Pitt fan, and football's been, basically average and mediocre, kind of like the Tomlin tenure. It's been a roller coaster ride a little bit for the Steelers. So maybe the Steelers need to go build their own facility. Maybe the Steelers need to go do their own thing. Like other franchises, the Raiders, for example, their facility is really, really nice. It's called the Taj Mahal for people who've ever been there, and I've been there. It's really, really nice. Bill Belichick used to call it the Taj Mahal of NFL facilities. Maybe put your facility out there in Cranberry, in Monroeville, wherever. You can put the facility if you're the Steelers out in the burbs, just not your games. You got to play at Acrisure. If Pitt can't build their own stadium and they don't have the money to do it, then you guys are going to share that stadium. You're not moving. You're playing there. You're not building another stadium downtown. There's no room. You're in the North Shore. You want to be there. But your facility could be elsewhere. But we know it's not going to be anytime soon. We know you're sharing. We know that while it's cool, and if you watch the movie The Football Town, which I got a sneak peek at, I was a part of the media screening there earlier in this week, actually. It's a great, great film narrated by Pat McAfee. It kind of makes it out like it's kind of cool that the Steelers and Pitt are sharing a practice field and a facility. That's the thing about the film. It's a great film. There's maybe some propaganda a little bit mixed in, but it's a great film. It really is a fantastic interpretation of high school, college, and pro football all through the area and its history and its importance and its impact. But that's not cool. And that's where you're at least not cool for the 35-year-old plus professional athlete. Maybe it's cool for the college kid who's 20, who's like, wow, the Steelers are here too. I'm not going to the NFL, but that's the Steelers. Or even if you are an NFL player in the future at Pitt, and yeah, they've had some. Oh man, maybe I'm going to play against that guy in the future. That'll be cool. Maybe he'll mentor me. That'll be cool while we're here. But for that guy, the veteran, for the Cam Haywards of the world, yeah, it's cool. Maybe a little bit. I'll mentor you, but it's, the fist pound there between a Steeler player and a Pitt player that's in the film. That's not an everyday thing, an every minute thing. The Steelers are sick of it. They don't love it. They'd rather go elsewhere and have their own thing. They got kids. They're not a 20-year-old looking up at the stars. But this is part of how it's no deal, because while all of that is true, all of that is not changing anytime soon. That's stuff you really can't change. I mean, I can do a more in-depth show on it, but that aside might even suffice, because you can't change a lot of that. They can build a facility in Cranberry. You can get rid of a little bit of that. Okay, it's not going to obviously break ground tomorrow. They wouldn't be in there just immediately for next season if they agree to it right now. They may not even want to do that because they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not the Cranberry Steelers, even though other franchises are doing it. The Raiders, again, have the facility about 20 minutes away from actual Vegas proper. It's where the players live. There, but they don't really live on the south side. Certainly Cam Hayward's not living there. Ben didn't live there when he played in Pittsburgh. When you're a family man and you're a veteran, you're not living there. So you got to drive in from the suburbs. Maybe you'd rather it be in the suburbs. Fine, but that's not going to happen tomorrow. That won't fix next year's report card, which, regardless of what they do on the field, likely going to be poor grades all over again. But again, where it's a no deal here is none of this is a surprise. This has all been going on. And while the Tomlin era at the end, the last decade, got stale, and I've been saying for years that he was never going to get fired, but he needed to leave. It needed to end. Somehow there had to be a separation between the two. Finally occurred. We'll see what happens under Mike McCarthy now. But the Steelers have still been a good franchise on the field. Not great. They haven't been a championship contender in a while, but they've been getting in the postseason. They just won a division title. They just got in again. For the most part, they are a playoff team, and they've been that in that last decade. So while there are other franchises that have been winning more, that are more of a championship contender year in and year out, that quickly rebuild after being bad. I mean, look at the Patriots. They were obviously a dynasty. They were rough for a year. They then build it back up. They fire a coach. They realize he was wrong. They draft the right QB because they were so bad. Steelers are never so bad to draft that guy early. And then the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl. Eagles fired Andy Reid. They were sick of that tenure, even though it was close. They then win 2 championships with 2 different head coaches. Those things happen. And I get Steelers fans' annoyance that it hasn't happened to you in a decade. But the Steelers on the field result is certainly not dead last in the league. It's certainly not an F. Maybe it's a C- or C+. We could have that debate, or a B- if you ask them, probably. It's not what they want in terms of the A and winning every game, but, the Rooneys think it's better than what the fans do, and maybe that's part of the problem here. But, and we'll get to more of that later, but none of this is new. And while the issue of sharing with Pitt, and the issue of the bathroom stalls, and the issue of where the facility is located, and the issue of the field and the playing surface at Acrisure Stadium, while that's always been the case since they started doing these report cards, it's been a thing. And they've got poor grades on all of those categories every year. They still are able to field a team that at least is relevant, competitive, and gets in the postseason more often than not and just won a division title. So none of that by itself is accurate to really where they stand amongst the NFL. Yes, their facility and sharing with Pitt, you could argue for, again, a 30-plus-year-old pro is the worst in the league. There are others that are bad in terms of what you're looking at, but sharing with a college program, having it be where it is, having it be far from where you live, having to deal with all that traffic, and then having to not have as much in terms of the weight room, in terms of nutrition, in terms of the bathroom stalls again. I think the dining hall is really freaking nice. Certainly the cookies that the media gets. I argued and joked really with my wife before we got married that we should hire that guy to do our cookie table, and didn't fly, but I still wish we would have done that. One of the only regrets of our wedding years ago, 4 years ago now, actually. We're going to be 5 coming up here early in the summer in June. But okay, I get all of that for you, but again, that right there has not affected the team and made it a 2-win team or the worst of the NFL. So if all of that's the worst, if we just agree all of that's the worst, maybe I concede there. There are others that are bad, but if that's all the worst for you as a player, okay, you're still, anywhere from 7 to 10 wins every year, usually 10. There's only been actually, the 9-8 thing. Pretty rare, actually, for the Steelers. I believe it's happened only once, but maybe twice now. But, you're still floating around that 10 win. It's not like all of that has led to be just horrendous franchise. The other ones that have bad facilities that fail on those grades usually are also bad teams. So that's why I can't say it's no deal at all, because I would prefer them to get a facility somewhere else. I would prefer them to improve all of it. I would prefer them not to be sharing with Pitt, at least facility wise, even if you have to stadium wise. I do think they should go and put a facility somewhere in the suburbs. That's fine, as long as you're playing in the city. I don't like people saying, let's just put the stadium in Monroeville or Cranberry. No. Or the North Hills or South Hills or whatever you want. No. The stadium, no, not Moon Township near the airport like someone brought up too. No, the stadium should be where it is. You're playing there. Don't concede the freaking stadium to Pitt. They're going to tarp it. They can't even fill out that stadium. So if you did that and left, Pitt really, in all reality, shouldn't be playing there despite not having the money to build their own stadium and fixing it with tarps. So now you're going to have it permanently tarped, and that's the premier location. Like, no, that's where you are. But facility-wise, let Pitt have that. They got to be in the city too. You can't have the Pittsburgh Panthers as a college, the University of Pittsburgh, not the University of Cranberry. Like, they're not going to put their campus. They're not going to put their college students who do internships at this facility. They're not going to have them go to Cranberry. Maybe some of them don't even have cars. Like, they're college kids, of course, that are doing internships. It's part of those programs. You would really screw a lot of it if you move them. They got to be in the city. There's nowhere on campus in Oakland to do freaking anything. A stadium or a facility barely can fit the Pete there. Okay. Let them stay. You take yourself and your money. You got more of it. You're able to do more with it. And you put your facility elsewhere. I'm down with all of that. I think they should. But none of that right now, and none of it has been an issue in recent years to result in losses on the field. Okay. We've even known Tomlin gets an A and everybody else has all these low grades, and Tomlin's no longer there. People saying, oh, that's the only thing that players like now it's gone. We've known for years that the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to get players, have players want to go there, whether it be Ramsey, whether it be Joe Hayden years ago, whether it be Minkah Fitzpatrick, who got traded there, and that was part of the reason why he was thrown for that trade and then wasn't even thrown on the departure, even though there was a money situation involved there. Players that get drafted there are thrilled for Tomlin. Like, Tomlin himself, who is a future Hall of Fame coach, even though it had to end, it just had to end. It wasn't enough the last decade. It had to end. Was a player's coach in a way, maybe too much for some, for sure. That annoyed some, for sure. That's legit as a criticism, for sure. But I am not surprised that he would get an A, and the grade for the head coach is off him, by the way. McCarthy's, of course, only been there a little bit of time now. But yeah, they brought in players for Tomlin. Great. You have a coach who the players love. They want to play there. They like playing for that man. Great. It hasn't led to any playoff success. It's still been stale. I'm still not mad that the tenure did come to an end. I think it was time. It was overdue. It's been long overdue, you could argue. It's been time for a change. Whether you like McCarthy or not is a different story, but it's been time for a change. So none of that is a surprise at all. Maybe some grades are higher or lower here, and yeah, the overall thing being a fail, it's funny for the show, but it's embarrassing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It should be an historic franchise. Watch Football Town. You get the history there. This should be embarrassing, 100%. It should have been embarrassing for years. But none of it has by itself resulted in this team being horrendous, this team being a 2-win team, this team may being in the spot that some of you would wish they would be. Some of you probably secretly in the last several years would wish the report card would lead to a 2-win year, and then you'd be higher in the draft and can make this easier for you. No, the Steelers, just whether it be Tomlin, McCarthy, whoever, they don't want to punt years. They never want to be bad enough for that to be an issue. They're never going to be. I'm sure with McCarthy coming in, we can have all our opinions here. We'll leave that again for another day. Got to see what's really going on here further into the offseason. If I had to bet right now, another 10-win year, lose right away in the playoffs. Like, it's going to be a good team. They're not going to be horrendous. He's kind of the Mike Tomlin of the NFC over the last 20 years. But they're not going to win a Super Bowl either. That's kind of where I am. So again, not an A+, but you're in the C neighborhood. You're not in the F neighborhood that this report card's showing. There certainly are worse teams than you and going to be worse teams than you, even if the roster stays as is, regardless of the QB, under Mike McCarthy like it was under Tomlin. However, and again, mic drop here, available everywhere you get your podcasts, powered by Believe, and of course, available on SiriusXM, talking if the Steelers failing their report card is a big deal or no deal here. Feel free to chat along. Feel free to hit me up throughout social, X, or even right here in the comments. Have a yeah dog. I guess that is you agree with what I've been saying, so I will, give you a thumbs up right back there, Matthew. And that's why it's no deal. And mostly because it's not surprising. It hasn't resulted in these horrendous seasons. The results on the field have been better than what the grades show. You can't do much to change most of this, even though there are little things you could do that maybe I would support doing. But even if you do them, like moving the facility, it's not happening for next year. This is not obviously a long 20-year leash like you gave the previous coaches with Mike McCarthy because he is older. This is probably that 5-year contract window to see what happens here. So if any of that's your plan, you're not going to really hit the ground running with improving any of that until a couple years halfway in. But none of that matters to this team. I do think the report card and why it's no deal again is overblown in a way. It is not good. It is embarrassing. It does suck. If you're the Steelers to see these grades, I'm sure they don't like it. But they know that it's not really a direct result of what goes on the field. It hasn't been that way for years. These grades, I'm sure, do not surprise them. They reflect the same thing year in and year out. And when you change nothing, you're going to keep hearing the same thing. So they can't be surprised. They're too smart to be surprised. I'm sure none of this surprised them when they saw the grades, maybe as bad as they were, but still probably not. So all of that makes it a no deal in all reality. The big deal part here is the grades are getting worse every year. The grades this year were worse than the year prior. You're seeing Fs on this report card. And as I mentioned, the only A's, the only real A, B marks are the previous staff, are the head coach, are his position coaches, are his assistants. That's now not a thing anymore for the Steelers. Again, the Tomlin era was stale. He had to go. I'm not against him being gone, and he chose to step down. I do buy that, by the way. Some of you think he was really fired. That's not the case. A lot of that will change. Mike McCarthy is a very popular man, I imagine, in terms of popularity, in terms of these grades, regardless of what they do on the field. They'll be fine as well under him. But all of this getting worse and worse and worse certainly could be part of this being not a nothing deal. I mean, overall, it hasn't affected the field, but eventually something got to give here. So that's why it maybe flirts with being a little bit of a deal. Is it the end of the world? No. The big deal part of this is, though, and this is not necessarily off just the grades, if you stick with me, the only big deal part, and this is more of the conversation in the aftermath where people take this, seeing the report card. The report card itself is overblown, is overrated, is not going to result in wins or losses on the field. And none of this is new information. We know all of this and have been knowing all of this. It getting worse every year and them doing nothing, okay. But the big deal part for the Steelers in general, not even directly off the report card, just the big deal part of the Steelers vibe, the Steelers franchise, the Steelers way of life, the Steelers way, in general. What's a big deal to you if you're a fan? What should be a big deal is the one category that stands out above all else. Team facility is F, we know it. Home field, we know it. F minus. We get all of that. But you go down here, and this isn't an F, but it's not good. And I have all the grades, by the way, on my X account if you do want to go over there, but so do many of my colleagues. It's all over the place now. You can't hide from these. Team ownership, D minus. Team ownership, D minus. Not an F. There are worse grades there, but D minus. Might as well be an F. You are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, go check out Football Town at the Science Center down there near the stadium. A great film. And we can talk about it after. Hit me up and say, I watched it. Here's my opinions on this. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't like, what I agree with, what I don't, what maybe massages the truth a little bit. It's on Pitt history, by the way. We can go back and forth. Overall, a great film, though. I was happy to be invited for the pre-screening, 100%. I'd even watch it again. I'd go pay my $10. But this is a historic franchise. This is a Super Bowl rich franchise. You have the 4 from the 70s. You have the Chuck Noll tenure in the 70s. You have Bill Cowher winning one at the end. You have Tomlin winning one. You have 6 Lombardi trophies. Okay? Yes, peaks and valleys. Yes, the 80s not what the 70s were for Noll. Yes, Tomlin had losing seasons. Yes, the last decade under Tom or Cowher had losing seasons. Yes, the last decade under Tomlin had been stale. I mean, the 80s, Cowher's losing seasons and Tomlin's last decade, they're true. They're part of the story. And before the 70s, before that great draft class, before Mean Joe Green and company, way back, they were barely relevant. They were one of the worst franchises for the first 40 years of existence. Okay? All of that is Steelers history, and all of it's brought up in Football Town. For the most part, most of the good is brought up, but it's all brought up. And that franchise that has had one family own this damn thing for a long damn time, from Dan Rooney, Art Rooney II, we'll talk about maybe who's coming up in the future with Dan Jr. He was there. We got to talk with him, actually, at the Science Center for the pre-screening of Football Town. He's the future. I'll get to maybe why he's relevant here. Maybe some optimism around him in a bit. But all of that being said, and your ownership is D minus, generally speaking, if you're a player, we all have assumed that here's what you want in an owner. An owner. I'm not talking about the rest. You want somebody that's willing to pay you. You want somebody that, and that's, up there. You want somebody that's not going to meddle too damn much. I don't know if players love the Jerry Jones thing, and it worked in the 90s. It hasn't worked in 3 decades. Dak Prescott got to answer questions every day and got to ask himself what the hell's going on and not even really be able to be in lockstep with the owner and have to answer for him. It's kind of like being the press secretary for Trump. You don't really know with what you're trying to communicate here, and you want to make sure you're not saying the wrong thing to piss the guy off, but you're going to get blindsided with questions constantly. That's Dak Prescott's life. That doesn't happen to the Steelers players. Like, you want an owner that's there and nice and money's right, but not going to meddle too damn much. Not going to do his own radio show. Not going to answer questions and throw you under the bus and have to have you answer for him. He's the owner, not the player. That's kind of what you want. And then, of course, a nice guy, someone who's not, abusive verbally or otherwise, and those owners have existed over the years. You don't want a Donald Sterling thing, a Marge Schott thing for basketball or baseball fans. Dan Snyder for the NFL. You don't want the Dan Snyder situation. You don't want to be an employee under that or a player under that. Right. And with the Rooney family, of course, there's no radio show. He only really does a couple, and this right now is, I'm not talking about Dan Jr. or Dan or Art. I'm talking about Art Rooney II right now, because that's who they're probably really grading. That is the guy right now. You have somebody who's not going to do radio shows. He's tough to ever talk to. He'll talk to select media at the end of a season, maybe one other time. That's it. He's not going to meddle. You know, when you have to have a question that you need to answer, when you have a question thrown at you throughout a week before a game, throughout the season, there's not even a second where you got to think this guy is going to throw me under the bus later, or I got to make sure I answer this right to not piss him off, or whatever I answer has to be in line with what he answered. And what the hell did he think? What the hell did he answer? That got to be Dak Prescott's mind every week talking to the media after Jerry doing his own radio show. That's not your concern. Like, Art Rooney II's not going to go drop a hot take somewhere. He's not going to talk and appear with Stephen A. Smith. He's not going to roll up on First Take. Half the time, the fans maybe would want more visibility or hear from him more or know more about him. That's not going to be an issue or happen with him. He's a nice guy. There's no abuse going to go down, of course. It's a laugh for even say it. An incredibly nice man. That whole family on down. Incredibly nice, incredibly personable in all reality. Staple to the community. Do a lot of humanitarian work, do a lot of community work. The family has been doing so forever, since owning the team, really forever. They are part of the fabric of Pittsburgh. And they're Pittsburghers. I mean, that's the vibe they even give off. It's a family-run business, which Pittsburghers kind of respect that. They prefer that than, say, when the Fenway Group owned the Penguins, and that's dissipating now and moving on. But, you know, they don't, even Fenway Group's successful with the Red Sox and Liverpool, but with the Penguins, even if you get success, and they haven't been recently, obviously, maybe this year, but not prior during the Fenway Group ownership times, Pittsburghers just don't like lack of visibility, saying nothing and just saying, here's the money, go do whatever. Yeah, okay, you're corporate. That's not blue-collar Pittsburgh. But the Rooney family has been blue-collar Pittsburgh. They've fit in with the vibe of the city, with the personality of the region. They understand it's not even just the city. They understand that Steeler Nation extends through all of Western Pennsylvania, goes into freaking West Virginia, and goes all around the country and around the world. And they know that. They respect that. They're not trying to hide from that. Steeler Nation's a real thing to them. Whereas other owners, they got their area, and, you know, it's rough to get anything otherwise. You think you're going to have a random Jaguars fan pop up around the country? It's going to be much harder than seeing black and gold. You're going to see black and gold everywhere, and people you come up to in another location when you're traveling with a Steeler jersey on, you say, hey, you from Pittsburgh too? And they may say, no, never even been there in my life, but I'm a Steeler fan. That's kind of still who the Rooney family are stewards over, because they're fans of the team, and Steeler Nation does extend to all of that. And you don't have to be embarrassed of them as people. There's no scandal. There's no Dan Snyder. Again, you don't have to be embarrassed of them. No employee is going to say, this guy abused me, this guy harassed me, this went on. You don't have to worry about reading about the Rooney family on TMZ or hearing about them on CNN or Fox News. All of that you would think being true would help the grade be a little higher than a D-. This is kind of where maybe the big deal pop-up light bulb, like what's going on here, could exist. All of that is true. I can't imagine. I'd love for anybody out there, whether it be a fan in the comment, a colleague of mine, whoever, to try to dispute anything I just said. I mean, all of those things I just said are true about the Rooney family, about Art Rooney II as an owner. We're doing a grade off just team ownership here. This is not everything on down. Maybe the players are grading the owner on what you provide. Maybe the facility that's sharing with Pitt, the bathroom stalls, all of that. Maybe that's part of this, the field surface. Okay. But there are a couple categories that I think also could be part of this too. And there are some players that maybe are fine. You know, Cam Hayward's asked for a new contract every year and usually gets his way. Sometimes does not. TJ Watt got the bag despite not winning a playoff game, and obviously a future Hall of Famer and a dominant player. The Steelers do often take care of the right guys. And usually the players get their way, even though sometimes it's a car wash, certainly at the receiver position, for example. Coaching staff-wise, the Steelers are cheap. Let's call it what it is. I mean, it's not just Cam Hayward voting on this here. Coaching staff-wise, the Steelers are cheap. They are. The Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff-wise are cheap. Staff-wise are cheap. And what I mean by that is not even just the salaries, but certainly other franchises pay more. and there's no cap on the staff. The NFL roster has a salary cap. You got to work within the cap. But where I say they're cheap, and it's not even so much of player situation of do they want to expand the staff? Number one, seems no. Every other team is doing so. You look at Seattle, pass game coordinator, specialty coaches all through. Look at college programs, West Virginia that I cover directly. There's so many coaches there, it's hard to keep track. And that's becoming a common theme around the country at major programs, certainly in the NFL as well. A lot of teams have pass game coordinators in addition to the offensive coordinator, in addition to the quarterback's coach. All three of those guys got their hands in that thing. For years and years and years, the whole term of pass game coordinator or even a QB coach, and obviously there have been QB coaches in the NFL, but those things are more prevalent maybe in college, and college staffs have never been as big as they are now, of course, but some of those minor positions, okay, are they, you got to really tune in with individual things. The NFL kind of was above that. It hasn't been for years, though. I mean, the staffs that are getting bigger and more people doing more, and the head coach having to do less and delegate more, and it becoming more of a collective thing, and use the money where there's no salary cap on you in terms of staff to spread out the love. That's becoming more of the theme that wins. The championship playoff organizations, certainly the championship organizations, generally speaking these days, and this again has been going on for years, have a broader staff, have a vast staff, have a bigger staff than what the Steelers provide. The Steelers are pretty cookie cutter. It is head coach, it is OC, it is DC, on down the regular position coaches. They can exist, of course. You have interns on the staff. That's minor. College programs have more coaches on their staff sometimes than the Steelers. The Steelers just do not want to sprinkle it out. The Steelers, and maybe this is ownership being cheap in a way, because some think, okay, they spend it here and don't spend it here. Overall, you could argue this franchise and the Pittsburgh Steelers are cheap. If there was no salary cap, the Pirates wouldn't just be the only franchise that's the Pirates in the city. Pittsburgh's a market that's fading out. It's out of the top 30 now. It was top 25 at one point. Like, it's not a small city, but it's not nearly sitting pretty financially. The Steelers would be a small market team if there was no cap. They wouldn't be the Steelers anymore, really. And so would others, so would Green Bay, etc. But it wouldn't just be Jacksonville. It wouldn't be like the Steelers would be above that because of their history. No, there's historic programs in college that are having trouble right now. Look at Nebraska. They might be Nebraska of the NFL if all of a sudden the cap's off. The Cowboys would spend whatever. They'd bring everybody in. The Steelers would be sitting there, where am I going to penny pinch? Who can I get? Our cap that we have, even if there's not really one. It's like they would put a self-imposed cap on themselves, kind of like the Pirates do. That would be the life of the Steelers and of Steeler fans if there was no cap. So God bless for that if you're a Steeler fan, if you're a member of Steeler Nation. But the staff being so small, the facilities being what they are, and really maybe just even the Rooney family and the Steeler way feeling like they are stuck. They are stuck in a rut, despite a new era, despite a turnover to a new coach, a new staff, still kind of feels that way. The grades reflected it off of last year, at least. We'll see what this next year shows us grade-wise when we're sitting here 1 year from now. But there's a cheapness to the Rooneys, 100%, and there's a stubbornness there, too. They believed the last decade under Tomlin was fine. It's clear. Listen to Art Rooney II and what he said after Tomlin stepped down. If Tomlin didn't step down, he'd be the coach right now. 100%. Not even a doubt in my mind. They think getting in the playoffs and not going anywhere and having real no chance to go anywhere is success. It might not be for you as a Steelers fan. It might not be enough for most people. And maybe occasionally you're not going to win a title every year, of course. But you got to have a flirtation of giving you a vibe of doing more occasionally. That hasn't been the case for a while, for almost a decade now. But they still view it as a success. They're in this Steeler way mentality. They're kind of stuck in their ways a little bit. The Rooney family gives a vibe, and maybe it does to the players, maybe where they got these grades in a way outside of the facilities and the other issues there, and this can't all be about the bathroom stalls, that it's an older ownership mentality, despite Dan Rooney Jr. being young. And again, I'll put a pin in him. But it's an older ownership mentality. It is a stuck in your ways stubbornness. That vibe exists. That vibe is heard around the league. There are other media members that cover other teams. There are other fans that follow other teams. Clearly, there are other players on other teams, and even the players on this team that are saying that, whether behind closed doors or, letting it out. Because these report cards tell you. This report card by the Steeler players on this team tell you. And especially because of what I led into kind of this, it's a bigger deal part of the show here, this maybe latter half segment, is why. There's no scandal. There's no personal issue. There's no character issue. There's no bad reputation. There's no reason why you'd be embarrassed to play for the Rooney family, for Art Rooney II. And you don't have to worry about what he's going to say. Yet, a D-. That's where there could be a big deal here. Because as much as you're not going to change the facility tomorrow and other things we kind of knew and it wasn't affecting the field yet, the ownership grade getting worse every year, the ownership grade almost being a fail and being a D- for an historic franchise that has won more than a lot of others, that has a family lineage that's important here to the fabric of the city and of the league. At D-, D- for the Rooney family. Now, again, mic drop here with Believe and Sirius XM, talking the Steelers report card. They've been failing. Big deal, no deal. Here on this episode of the show. I'm going to kind of wrap things up with maybe the optimism of the future. Dan Rooney Jr., a younger guy, a more modern thinking guy, also personable, has kind of the charisma and comfortability around us, around whatever he has to do, around the fans. Maybe not as comfortable in a way, in some sense. Sometimes feels like he has to learn it, but certainly comfortable at least around the media. And he's been out there more to the forefront lately. He's the one at Football Town. He's the one at the owners' meetings doing the interviews, even though maybe his dad's there, but he's the one doing those interviews. He's the one that my colleague Alan Saunders interviewed one-on-one. He's more apt to do those things. Whereas, as I said, Art Rooney II, you get the one select media time. You maybe go on WTAE. You kind of dance around things. You talk about how, what do you mean it's not been good enough? We've been in the playoffs, even though we haven't gone anywhere. You're stubborn. Players probably watch that and just laugh in a way. They know they're not dumb. That maybe goes into the grade. But Dan Rooney Jr. here is a younger thinking, a younger man who is going to be the future. Dan Rooney Jr. is going to take over. He's going to be the guy. He's been building to this his whole life. He's been learning from his grandfather, from his father, his whole life. I mean, it's a dream for all of us. You have that last name and you're going to be in this position. He didn't, in a way, earn it. The nepotism here, of course, but this is a family-run franchise. It's all about nepotism. That's just how the NFL works, like it or not. He's going to succeed here. And I mean propel himself into that position someday. Right now, just doing kind of business strategies. He's involved there. He's more front-facing in the last several months or in the last year than in the past. I don't know if casual fans even knew who the hell he was as recent as 6 months ago to a year ago. But now he's out there. It's hard to not know him. And he's very willing to do whatever. Very willing to do whatever. He wants to learn the media no matter who you are. He'll do whatever you want. He'll answer whatever you want. He was a fan. He grew up with all of this. He has the experiences. He can kind of relate to you. He's more relatable than I would say the older Rooneys that we've experienced over the years of Art Rooney II, of Dan Rooney. Like he's more relatable to me. But he's going to be the guy, whether you like it or not. And I do think there's optimism around him being the guy. I do think the franchise will be better off with him as the guy. I think he'll be more comfortable to do more media sessions. I don't think it's once a year to force him to do it. I don't think he'll dance around every topic. I think you'll hear from him more often. He'll answer things more directly. He'll go to more events. He's younger. This isn't the end of his career. This will be the beginning. He'll be hungry to do all of this. It'll feel more relatable to you. It'll feel more common with where media is today, with everybody on social media. He might even get there. We see owners all over the NBA and Major League Baseball and, all over social media. NFL owners, not as much. A lot of them are older, but maybe the Steelers will get a younger guy who maybe will be there, give a younger vibe and injection of youth into a very stubborn, older mentality in the front office and at the top. And I could do a whole thing on Omar Khan as well. I don't think he's given enough time. I don't think the grade there for him is really fair. But for Rooney, I'm not shocked. I guess I am because there's no scandal with that grade being so bad, but I'm not surprised that some are sick of the stubbornness. Some are sick of not answering. Some are sick of not being present. Some are sick of the older Steeler way that really is not the modern way. And this goes beyond just how you build a football team and how much you run the ball or where your thoughts are on the intricacies of things. Because there's stubbornness there too. There's too much Steeler way there too. But the ownership stubbornness is there, and that's a thing, and that maybe is a part of this too. But Dan Rooney Jr., I don't think is going to bring you any of that. I think there's going to be, and maybe you don't know him, and you'll say, "Oh, roll your odds. It's just purely nepotism." I think he'll win you guys over. I think he'll be the right guy. I think he'll be the future for this franchise, and I think the Steelers franchise will be better off under Dan Rooney Jr. eventually. Again, that'll do it here for this episode of the show. The Steelers got a report card. They didn't do so hot. They didn't do so well. Are they grounded? What's going to change in the future? What can you do? Because they've been grounded for years and nothing has changed to this point. It's kind of been insane around the Steelers report card over the years. Now a new era nonetheless, though. We'll see what Mike McCarthy does. And, the things they're failing here, even if they're winning on the field, they're not going to get a better facility. They're not going to get more bathrooms. They're not going to get, more in the strength room. They're going to be playing in the same stadium. The field surface is supposed to improve, so maybe that'll improve. Of course, they're not going to be in Cranberry for this facility next year or tomorrow. So those things might still be failing grades, which is why it's the grading, the report card overall, maybe is too big of a deal for some. I don't think it's being I think it's being overblown for some. I don't think it's going to lead exactly to a direct result of wins or losses on the field. But the ownership, the D- for the ownership, I think it'll be better in the future under Dan Rooney Jr., but right now that's an indictment of the older, stubborn, not really in your face. You don't hear from him, and then you dance around at questions, everything else I mentioned that he's under, a cheapness there around. It's an indictment, all of that. They're not afraid to say it. Maybe anonymously, but they're not afraid to say it nonetheless. Again, mic drop here, made possible by the Believe Network, available everywhere you get your podcasts and on SiriusXM. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Find me all over social media at MikeAsti11. Hit up my coverage, whether it be the Steelers or anything else. You can also find a lot of national conversation and national content from me at Yardbarker. That'll do it for this. I think this was an A+ show. I think I'm at least at an A-, B+ to be maybe accurate here. We're in the A territory. We're certainly above the D- Art Rooney Jr. or Art Rooney II's getting. I mean, I think this is an A+ show here. We're certainly above the D- that Art Rooney II got, regardless. You may think this is an A+. I could maybe honestly give myself more of a B neighborhood, way above the D. Way above the D-, not a D+, a D- for Art Rooney II. Or an F in many other categories, or the cumulative D probably, or C low for this report card. I think this show here, I think Mike drops above all of that. But give me a comment. Drop a comment here. Hit me up anywhere on social. A comment here, and I'll comment back to you, whether it be in the podcast feed or any of these YouTube channels, and give me a grade on my coverage on my show, and I'll tell you if I think it's fair or not.